Welcome back to From A to Franchisee, the podcast where we pull back the curtain on what franchise ownership really looks like so you can make a smarter, more confident decision on your journey to become a franchisee. Today, we're diving into one of the most in-demand categories in franchising right now, brick and mortar child enrichment. If you've been exploring this space, you already know why it's so appealing. Predictable schedules, purpose-driven work, strong community presence, and a business model that parents rely on year after year. But what does it actually look like to own and operate a franchise like Tutu School? How different is it from mobile models like the one featured in episode 17 that we did? And what should you expect when it comes to real estate, staffing, relationships with parents, and daily operations? To help answer some of those questions, we're joined by Ashley Vetek, a multi-unit franchisee with Tutu School. She has lived the day-to-day reality of this business, from the challenges of build-out to the joy of watching children grow in confidence and skill. We'll talk through what surprised them most, what they wished they could have known before they opened their doors, and the advice that they have for anyone considering investing in this sector. So let's get to it. So first, Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. We actually got to do a live session in Atlanta this fall, and that's where we met. And I learned that you were just recently becoming a multi-unit franchisee. You are a woman in franchising, which we love highlighting, and you're a veteran. So we are thrilled to have you on here because I know a lot of people thinking about or exploring franchises will have something to connect with you to, which is fantastic. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell me, what were you doing before you joined Tutu School, and what drew you to either franchising or child enrichment specifically? Just tell us about that journey.
So, yeah, prior to investing in Tutu School, I was active duty Air Force for about 12 years. I was a pilot in the Air Force, and during my time in the military, I had always kind of had this tug towards entrepreneurship. I didn't know what that would look like or when it would happen and when it would make sense for our family. But whenever I was nearing my time to get out of the Air Force, I started kind of exploring what our next chapter was going to look like. I have two young children and I was flying. And so military life, sets you up perfectly to go fly for the airlines, which is what my husband does now. He was also in the military. But with both of us flying, it just didn't feel right for our family. And so I continued to explore entrepreneurship, and franchising was not really on my radar initially, to be honest. It really wasn't, especially in the dance world. I didn't even know that that existed because I think most people, when you think of franchising, you think of maybe a fast food chain or something else. And I started really digging into opportunities available in franchising and discovered Tutu School. But my husband and I, we did talk about it. Funny enough, I had my application into the airlines at the time whenever I discovered Tutu School, but I decided that that wasn't the best next step. My heart was always, like I said, tugged towards entrepreneurship, and I ended up quarantining for COVID when we moved to Atlanta, and I started doing some more reflection. And that's when I started to explore opportunities in franchising and discovered Tutu School. I was a dancer all my life. My father was in the military as well. And every time we would move to a new location, I always had to find my dance studio home. And so I felt really pulled to those roots. And I just felt like this was a perfect full circle moment for me to get back into dance in this way. And so that's when I decided to start a Tutu School. And a Tutu School is just such a mission-driven brand, and it just aligned perfectly with, what I wanted out of a business. And I just fell in love with that.
So, Ashley, you were still active in the military when you did your research, and I'm curious just what that experience was like. So you're doing all of this virtually, I assume, and your time is probably a little different than other people that might be in a different line of work trying to do this research. So what was your overall time from I'm exiting the military, I need to figure out what my next move is, to making your decision? What kind of timeline are we looking at for that?
Yeah. Oh, so actually, let me back up. So I was already separated from
Okay.
course, whenever I started pursuing this, and I actually had applications in to go fly for the airlines at the time. And we were moved to Atlanta, relocated after I separated from my husband's job. And so that's when I started exploring this kind of in parallel with my application for the airline. And so from the time I discovered Tutu School and actually made the decision was probably about 6 months.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of other dance franchise opportunities out there, but I did find
Yes.
another, and I really wanted to compare the two. Tutu School was much further along as far as their growth and the support they were able to offer and things like that. And so, but I did it. I mean, even though 6 months. For some, it might seem quick, but I did a lot of due diligence. I talked to
Yeah.
a lot of owners.
Good.
But yeah.
Good. Yeah, we talk about the importance of that. Okay, so how did you mentioned that you were intrigued or interested in some kind of entrepreneurship. How did franchising get on your radar or Tutu School specifically? How did you come to find out about this opportunity?
So actually, I Googled dance studio franchise, and I did not expect to find anything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's so unusual. If you talk to any other Tutu School owner, it's like former parents or maybe teachers. And then from there, I visited other Tutu schools and I spoke to, Genevieve. And then that's kind of how I fell in love with the brand. But initially, it was through a Google search.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm going to tell you, I always tell my family, if there's a business out there, there's some franchise in that space. So today I learned that there is a deviled egg restaurant. It's all they
amazing.
sell. And they're now in the works of franchising. And I was like, yes, this
That's
is the
amazing.
perfect example. If you can sell it, people will franchise it.
Oh, yeah, if it's a proven model, then absolutely. If you find good operators, and I knew I would be a good operator, so I was like, "I'm in."
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to also too, this is like, there's so much for us to talk about, but, we've had one of our franchise friends, Allie Kraus, who is the incoming chair of the Women's Franchise Committee for IFA. We talk about how important it is to just bring awareness of franchising to more women that are interested in entrepreneurship or business ownership, that there's just even less awareness among women that this is something that they can do. And it's a little bit different than trying to start something on your own.
Hmm.
So what I want to share is that 32% of the franchisees that we surveyed this past year are female. So we're pleased to see that that's grown a little bit since we started 20 years ago, but there's still a lot of work to do. As a woman that is in franchising, how do you feel this business and what you're doing supports your life as a mother, as a wife, and as a woman that's leading a business?
Absolutely. So, being in the children enrichment space calls to me and as a mother as well. So, I mean, I have a daughter who danced in our studio whenever I first opened. So that connection is really organic because I have children. And so being able to work around kids and myself was definitely an appeal for me. And honestly, I think for this specific business, the way that I chose to start it, and everybody's goals are going to be different.
Hmm.
So it's really all about like how you want to set up your business to work within your lifestyle and what you want that to look like. For me, I really, as my children have, gotten older as I've owned these, my first location and grown it, they have more extracurriculars now, and there's just a lot more pulling at my time. So, like, where I started and where I'm at now looks different as far as my time investment and things like that. It was a steep learning curve that first year, though. I'll be honest, as far as like how the business fit into our lifestyle, and just growing it to a place where I could hire good team members and hand things off and make it work for our family.
I love that. Well, and also too, the majority of women that take our survey are single unit operators. 63% of women are single unit operators compared to 53% for men. So you've already kind of helped us with our data by opening up your second location. So you're in the minority.
Love that. Love that. No,
Um,
that's great. I mean,
yeah.
another part of this franchise specifically that spoke to me is I love working with other women and empowering them
Mm,
in my business too. And so I have one male teacher, but mostly it's young women. And I love the opportunity that I have to, grow them in leadership roles within the business
I
too.
love that. That's great. Okay, so let's talk about you 6 months for your research, but then comes you got to find a studio. So let's talk real estate. What factors did you prioritize when you were trying to decide where your school should go?
And so now that I just opened the third location this past
Ooh,
September, yeah.
yay!
And what I was looking at for that location is very different than what I was
Interesting.
looking at when I opened my first. So, funny enough, whenever I decided to open a Tutu school, I had a specific center 5 minutes from my house in mind, and I was like, I want to put a Tutu school there. So I was very like focused on one location. I did my due diligence. I looked at the other options in the area, but I actually already had the location picked out in my mind of where I wanted to put my first school. And looking back on it, well, and as I have opened subsequent schools, like I said, my criteria has shifted. Like one thing about it is your rent is it's gonna stay the same. It's not a variable cost. It's gonna, and so getting rent down is something that I have focused on with the second and third. So each location, I've downsized a little bit, and I don't need as much square footage because I don't know if people listening to this realize that it's priced per square foot, your rent is. And so I could open my third location is only 900 square feet, where my first was 1,300 square feet. And so, and over time, that just really adds up and like cuts into your profit margin. So paying attention to that as an expense is something that I've really focused on. And I also, I did this with all three locations. I looked for second generation spaces. I wanted to keep my build out as low cost as possible and try and get as much of my TI that I negotiated with my landlord to cover that build out as I could so that I had less out of pocket expenses.
Okay, so we're going to stop for the person that might be a little bit new to all of this. So we talked about the price for per square foot. Second generation means an existing building. You're not building from scratch. And TI is tenant improvement. So the landlord's giving you money to put towards that build out or whatever changes you want to make in the space to make it more specific to your brand. Did I get all that right? Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. And one thing that I looked for, and I'm fortunate, like, restaurant is obviously very different, like
Yes.
depending on the business you're getting into. But for us, we need a dance space, like a dance floor. So it's an open space. But I looked for spaces with an existing bathroom because I know that that affects the timeline of build out,
Very smart.
permitting, all of that. So if there's an existing bathroom and the way that the layout works, even flooring, my second location has existing flooring from the last business. So
That is great. Those are great tips. So I want to go back to your first spot. You said you knew that that's where you wanted it to be. Was it just the proximity to your house, or what else was about that space or that plaza that was calling to you?
right, yeah, and that's another definitely, something that I look for a location for child enrichment, it's young families. Where are young families spending time? And this specific location, any day of the week you can go and there's a big green space and they offer a lot of, like, marketing opportunities. They set up booths and special events, and so you can go and there's children everywhere. So I knew that that would be a good location for this type of business.
So that's such a great tip. How involved was your franchisor in helping you pick the real estate and giving you these kinds of tips versus what you knew on your own before picking?
They were involved as far as, they gave me, tips from previous owners and the locations that had opened prior to me as far as like those types of things that you're looking for, like where young families live, like demographics, like as far as they gave me those guidelines, I'll say, but they weren't involved as far as like they didn't provide me with a broker or anything like that. I sought that out on my own, and used a broker to find the subsequent locations. But again, like I said, I already had a location in mind for the first
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a great tip on bathrooms and permitting around that. Were there any other challenges with permitting, zoning, construction taking longer than you said? Anything that you kind of would just plant seeds in for somebody thinking about going into a physical space?
Yes. So, and it's going to be so dependent. Each location has been very different. So I want to like throw that out there. So my experience is it's very specific to your area where you live. The permitting process could look very different. It did for all three of my locations. The first one, it was pretty smooth sailing. The landlord was actually pretty involved to get that like everything moving and approved to get our certificate of occupancy completed quickly. The second location, however, we were build out was done. We were ready to open, and the fire marshal came to do the final inspection, which you need to get your CO, your certificate of occupancy, to open your doors. And we passed everything, but the apartment building above us had an expired inspection for the fire sprinkler system. And he had been passing other businesses in the center, just with the caveat that that needed to be taken care of, but decided my business was the one that he was going to put his foot down and it needed to get taken care of. So that was completely out of my hands,
Yeah.
which of course is frustrating. You're sitting, you're ready to open your doors, start collecting revenue, and you can only do so much, right? But I would say one piece of advice is I made a point to connect directly with that fire marshal. I was calling him myself on a, almost like semi like once a week, checking in. And I think just putting my story, like knowing I'm, I have a young family, I'm trying to open this business, just like putting a person behind this situation really helped expedite. And he really was amazing and worked with me. He was like, I understand this isn't your fault. And so that really helped get our doors open. But sometimes there's going to be things that are going to, you have no control
Yeah.
over the
Yeah.
process.
That's
So,
good.
yeah.
Well, that's good. So when you run into them, really advocate for yourself and stay on them until you get what you need. That's a good lesson.
Yeah.
Can you put an average time from signing the lease to opening between your three locations, or does it really vary based on those things outside of your control?
I would say it really does vary. I mean, you could get a space and it depends on the state that you find the space in. Like if you're starting with a shell meaning that there's not even like drywall and there's no bathroom or anything, that's obviously going to take much longer. That could be 6 months to a year to potentially. For me, I would say 3 months, 3 to 5 months would be like on average, but it really does depend on how quickly they're moving at the city and with permitting and all that, and
Yeah,
how behind they are with inspections. You're kind of on their timeline.
those are great. That's great. Okay, so I would love for you to walk us through what was a typical day like for you being the owner of a children enrichment franchise, and and then what has it evolved into now that you have three locations? How has your day-to-day life changed?
It's very different now, and that was intentional. So, when you're opening any business as the owner, you wear all the hats, right? And you can only afford to hand off so many things. So, I'm the marketing person. I'm answering every single email, every text message. I remember answering a phone call in the carpool pickup line for my kids. So, you are doing all the things. And since then, I've, put stricter like office hours on our team so that we're not kind of operating around the clock. But as a brand new owner, every phone call felt like a missed opportunity if I didn't answer it. So I was definitely working a lot, but that was my experience.
Right.
Right? Like I definitely looking back on it, probably I should have done a better job of putting restrictions on how much I was working. And we ramped up. Opened and we just had a really big opening, and so I had a lot more business than I had anticipated when we first opened. So it was very busy initially. So I'll put that out there as well. And so yeah, a day to day could look like you're answering emails, you're answering phone calls and text messages. A teacher may call out sick, and I would go in and I would have to emergency sub. So all of that is a factor. So each day could look a little different depending on what it brought.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
want to pop back. You brought up a good point around your grand opening. What does that grand opening look like? How do you get people there for the grand opening? And how important was that for you, for your business? It sounded like it really impacted how busy you were to start.
Absolutely. A lot of digital marketing, which looked different 4 years ago when I opened the first location compared to the second and the third. So I'll put that out there. And then a lot of community marketing. And so, like I mentioned, I live 5 minutes from my first location. So any marketing opportunity, and I was fortunate, again, getting back to the reason I chose that first location, there were a lot of opportunities to get involved. They did a lot of special events, like family focused events on their green space. So I would set up tents and I would hand out postcards. Any opportunity where I could have FaceTime with families in the community, I would take it. And so I did that probably for at least 3 to 4 months before we even opened our doors. And that definitely set us up for success. So we had really full waitlisted classes right when we opened that first location. And that was me, working as many of us as I could. I definitely couldn't have afforded at the time to pay other folks to do that, and that impacted how I set up my marketing plans for the second and then the third location because 'cause they're a little bit further away from me. I still did those things, but just not as many as I did for the first location,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So what does the number of employees look like for you? Is it per studio, or how has that grown with you and the number of centers you own?
yeah, I'll answer that question, and I'll also circle back to what my day-to-day looks like now,
Yes.
3
Yes.
locations, because
Yeah.
that it definitely,
Has changed.
is a
Yeah.
factor, absolutely, and so each location has at least, like, around, like, 4 to 5 dedicated, teachers, and they are all part-time.
Okay.
And then we have a couple of subs, that can float, and that's the benefit of scaling is I've also been able to increase my sub pool. That is probably one of the most challenging things is staffing and having part-time team members, because this is competing with a lot of priorities for them, right? And then Tutu School is a very specific curriculum that they have to learn, and so I can't just have any dance teacher come and teach a Tutu School class. So putting them through training and making sure that they're ready to teach a true Tutu School class. That's taken time to build. So the benefit of having 3 locations is I have about 20 teachers now on staff, and most of them can teach at any of the three, which is really it's amazing. It's been a huge benefit. And then getting back to the structure, so over time, as I was able to hand things off, now have an enrollment coordinator. She started with less hours with the first location, and then as I opened subsequent locations, we've added to her hours. So she was able to take over like emails and registrations, texting, and all of that stuff for me, which was really great. And so that I could focus more on the marketing and the leadership component. And then I also have teachers on my staff that have been with me for a while. They've taken on a leadership role on the team organically, and I recognized that in them early on, and so now we have principal teachers that are responsible for being that connection point between the franchise whenever they make curriculum updates, things like that, and, just offering that peer support and coaching and training, for new teachers. And so we have a principal teacher that oversees all 3 locations, master teachers that help with training and onboarding new teachers. And then we also now have site coordinators at each location that are responsible for tracking inventory and retail, all of that good stuff. So a robust team. Everybody on the team is still part-time and they are all teachers that we have added additional duties. So like maybe 3 to 5 hours per week on top of their teaching schedule.
Okay. So I don't think you'll be surprised to hear most franchisees that we talk to, the staffing and retention is a top challenge no matter what the business is.
Yeah.
You've already given us a few ideas or ways that you've kept your staff engaged with you, and I picked up on giving them more hours, up for opportunity for more hours as you have more locations, recognizing that they're ready to take on a leadership role. So again, playing into their professional and personal growth.
Mhm.
Is there anything else, because I know we talked about this in our session in Atlanta, anything else that you would say has really helped you develop these people or keep them longer, or just tackle that constant challenge of finding the right people for your organization?
Definitely. That's something that I'm always thinking about, and I'm always kind of evolving and growing, and that's, obviously paying them well, and paying them a little bit more than what they would get elsewhere is probably the most important thing, and then, and then also just really thinking about and being thoughtful about our team culture and what they are looking for, because there are different types of team members I've learned. So there are what I call my anchor teachers, those that have been with me now over 2 years. Like this is, they love Tutu School. They want to stay. Like they may not need a full time job, but this is their primary, one of their primary focuses. And then I have other team members where this is maybe a stepping stone, right? This is their part time job while they're going to school, or they're just, they're doing this for fun. I think for me, learning and actually asking each
Their
person,
why. Yeah.
like, "Why? Like, why do you wanna work for us? What are you getting out of this? And, like, what, lights you up about this?" Right? And then, like, leaning into that and understanding that has really made a difference, and I've learned over the years to ask those questions. I didn't initially,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and I didn't hire the right people initially. I wasn't looking for the right things, to be honest. Like, at first, I was looking for great dancers, but that's not a great dancer doesn't equal a great teacher or somebody that loves working with children, or, really connects with our mission and like what Tutu School's all about. And so it took me a little bit of time to like find the team members that connect with this. And it's but leaning into the why for each person, because again, it's all different. I mean, even it could be financial. Like maybe
Yeah.
financial is their why, and that's okay. And so maybe bonuses, that helps keep them more invested, or yeah. So just really kind of like listening to them and catering to that.
Yeah. I love that. So I want to shift to the parents. This is probably a very big part of your role. So your teachers are teaching the children, but the parents are a huge part of the business. What have you learned as far as communicating and managing the parents?
Yes. And that's something that I have also learned to train our teachers on as well, because it is just as important as it teaching, the kids in the class, like connecting with parents and managing parents' expectations. Because a lot of times, like we may have a parent come to us with their child, and they do not have any frame of reference on what's developmentally appropriate for their kiddo, because they haven't seen them in a classroom environment, because we start so young. We start as young as 6 months old. And
Wow.
so, yeah, we have baby ballet 6 months to 18 months. The baby ballet is a newer offering just in the past year. But we see them very young, and so and they may have these, maybe unrealistic expectations on what a 3-year-old can actually do. And so that's a part of what we are now training our teachers on, is helping parents, kind of understand like what the expectations of the class. But connecting with them is huge. Like they are the customer, the parents are the customer realistically. And so showing them that the value that we're delivering for their kiddos, and connecting with them, and connecting our curriculum with like what they're looking for their child in an extracurricular activity is so important. And meeting them where they're at. I'm a mom myself, and my kids are very active. My daughter's a competitive gymnast. And so the communication, I know how busy everybody's lives are. And so I tell my team, like, we cannot expect them to read every email. We have to, if we email, we also have to text. We need to put signs, because they're gonna miss it somewhere. So, just knowing who our customer is, and that they have really busy lives, and that we're meeting them there. So.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so without sharing any specific financials, you don't need to do that. But what financial factors do you think that people looking at getting into a franchise should pay the closest attention to before they invest?
With regards to, like, the FTD, or just
Can
in
be the FDD, it can be however you figured out how much money you could make with this business.
Talking to franchisees in the system is gonna be the most important thing you can do, and actually listening to them. I say it that way because I've had conversations with possible franchisees joining the Tutu School system, and, I think that especially for a very, like, mission-driven brand, type franchise, your heart gets really invested in it, and so I think it's really important that you do take the time to look at the financial investment and, like, listen to what franchisees are saying as far as, like, how long it will take you to actually become profitable. Most businesses are not profitable in their first year. That's just not realistic, so man and make sure that you have, like, realistic expectations,
Great
especially in
advice.
children-focused business, because profit margins are gonna be lower than some other businesses out there. I'll just be really frank and honest about that. It's not that is why I'm in multi-unit expansion. Um,
That's good advice. That's great. Yeah.
yeah, and owners will be honest, and they will, you just have to listen, so
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And so can you tell us how long it took you to break even in unit number 1?
so it took me about a year and a half.
Okay, so that's great. How about when did you feel like in the business, and it might have been that same moment that it kind of hit you like, okay, this is working. This is what I'm going to do to to grow my business here.
Yeah, so there are a couple of factors in what helped me decide to open multiple. I didn't
Yeah.
sign area development deals, so I went into it just focusing on one. But for Tutu School specifically, the very first two franchisees in the system now own over 10 locations. So that told me that multi-unit, yeah, multi-unit ownership is possible because people are doing it at that scale. So the seed was already planted that multi-unit growth was possible and that it's been done before. And then I was looking at just my enrollment numbers, where I was at, comparing it to the average for other people in the system, and just kind of looking at like realistically what my true profit potential was with just one location and what my goals were. And so that's what led me to decide, okay, to really meet the financial goals that I want to meet, I need to look at multi-unit growth. And I could do that over time, or I could try and do it as quickly as possible. And I elected to invest a lot of what we've made in the first location and the second location into growth versus, and then taking less home, of course.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, I love that you said you saw other people in the system doing it. Like that is our just exactly that. Like if you can see other people in the position you want to be in, it's much more believable that you can get there. So love that they had those examples within the system. I also just want to pause real quick. You mentioned an area development deal, and just for our listeners, if you do an area development deal, you're basically signing on to build out a particular geography for the franchisor. So that sometimes with your own schools, and sometimes it would be finding other franchisees to open those within that market, correct? Okay.
yes.
Okay. So just wanted to explain that to people. So some people know from the start, I'm going to have multiple locations or find other people to open the business, but you kind of took your time figuring out where you wanted to scale up. So a safer financial investment, not going all at it at once. So I like that. It's great.
Yeah, it was the financial piece, and then there was also just my bandwidth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, like, what made sense for us and my family. Like I said, I mean, I was a steep learning curve for me that first year. I was doing all the things, and so, once I felt, like, comfortable handing some things off, I started to, like, really get my processes set up, and the franchise, of course, gives you a roadmap,
Yeah.
but there are certain things that you do have to figure out for yourself. You're still the business owner at the end of the day, and so I had to, like, figure out what worked for my team, and then we replicated that. And then again, when I opened my second location, I still had a lot to learn, like expanding into a second location where I can't just drive 5 minutes down the street and just go pop in and fix a problem. Now this unit's further from me, so I have to figure that out too.
Yeah, that's great. So going back to the support from the franchisor, what kind of support did you receive during your launch, and what type of support do you think matters the most to your business now from the franchisor?
So whenever I opened my first location, Tutu School, I was unit number 60. And there were only, and I mentioned there's a lot of multi-unit owners. I think there was maybe 10 to 15 owners at the time. So it was still a pretty small community. And now we have over 100 locations open. In the last summit we held, there was a room full of people, owners. And so it's just grown rapidly. And so support has changed a lot from when I opened my first location to today. And it's still evolving. I just got off a call before this with they've grown the HQ team quite a bit in amazing ways. It's really
Yeah.
exciting. So we have a lot more support now. We have a franchise business coach. Now we have a dedicated marketing team. It was very lean whenever I joined the franchise system. So we did have an operations manual. We had, they call it Toral. So we have an online platform where you have access to, branding kits and all of that good stuff, which is great. But it looks much different today. So than it did then, which in all the best ways. So Genevieve has really invested a lot into growing support for the franchise, which has been amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to just share some of the data we have from franchisees that answer our survey that are within child enrichment. 90% of franchisees feel the long-term growth opportunity is moderate, strong, or very strong. So that's great. The overall financial picture today, 82% are saying that it's moderate, strong, or very strong. And I just think that kind of speaks to these are people that believe in what you guys are doing and that there's a need for it. And in thinking about that, what do you see as the biggest opportunities of being a franchise owner within child enrichment over the next 5 or so years?
I mean, I think that the opportunities are endless. People are worried about the economy, but families are gonna invest in extracurriculars for their children. They are. Like, I think that that is one area that tends to not get cut. Like, we've been offering special events and other things like that, and I have seen a reduction in people signing up for our special events, but our memberships have stayed pretty solid. So I think that there's a lot of opportunities, within any child enrichment space for sure.
Yeah. Well, and there's not as much opportunity sometimes within schools, so people are looking for those other opportunities, I think. So that's great. And we know, I mean, there's ballet for babies. We know that we start our kids young and find what they fall in love with.
Well, and it came from parents asking. We started
Yeah.
at 18 months old, and we would have so many families asking when their child's a year old. Like, they're looking for opportunities to be around other children,
Yeah.
socialize, and exposure to music and movement, and the franchise has done a great job of building out an actual, like, thoughtful and intentional curriculum for baby ballet. It's about developmental milestones and peer socialization, so there's, it's really a wonderful division, and there is that is definitely an opportunity because parents are asking for it, so we're
Yeah.
just listening to the
Yeah.
consumer.
It's a great example of innovation within a franchise system. It wasn't on the original product or service, but they are adapting to the need of your customer, which is exactly what you want from your franchisor. And I can't
Absolutely.
think of anything cuter than pictures of babies doing ballet.
Absolutely. I know, right? And it's adorable. I mean, it really, like, when we're looking at digital marketing,
Yeah.
it is the ad that always does the
Oh,
best.
of course. You can't get any cuter. Yeah, I mean, I think about my daughter is 17, and back when she was a baby, you could do like the rumble tumble type of thing or get them in a pool. Like that was literally it until they could walk on their own. So it's great.
Yeah.
There's opportunities. Okay, so how about we're going to go back to you're now talking to people that are curious about franchising. What do you think are important traits or mindset for someone that is thinking about getting into this space that they need to have to be a successful franchise owner?
I love that question because it's not, it is something that I've learned, like, over time as I've owned my own business. I think it's resilience. Like, I think
Great.
that is so important. Everything is seasonal, and it's hard. It's hard to, like, get through those rough patches, but at the end of the day, it is your business, and you can make the call on what happens next, and so just keep putting one foot in front of the other. So I think, like, knowing that you have that resilience will really set you up for success in business ownership, franchising or not.
Yeah,
So,
that is so great. I mean, that's what we're all about here on this particular podcast is it's not easy being a business owner. There's so many pros to it. There's so much joy, but we are not overselling something that we want you to understand. There are very hard days. I'm also a business owner outside of franchising. So I totally get it. I want to scare everybody into like, you got to work super hard, especially in the beginning. So resilience is a fantastic I feel like it's a trait and a mindset really to come into this business with.
yeah, I mean, I have conversations with potential owners, and one thing I always say is this is not a side hustle. It
Yeah.
isn't. It
Yeah.
isn't. I just wanna I'm super like, honest and frank with about that because and especially if you wanna do it successfully, you have to invest the time for it to actually grow. It's
Yeah.
not something that I mean, not everybody I'm very fortunate that my husband has a full-time job, and I was able to
Yeah.
give myself the runway to let this, to get it to the point where it's profitable, but and not everybody has that, but it's yeah, you
Yeah.
have to invest the time.
That's great. How about what questions do you think are important for candidates to ask franchisees, or what don't they ask that you really think that they should ask?
Going back, I wish I would have probably spent more time on myself is the time commitment and the investment and just understanding, what that really means and entails, and just digging a little deeper into that. But again, and then understanding, like, what you're looking for from the business yourself because it's gonna be different. So if you are looking at being actually in the physical space every single day and teaching, my answer is gonna it's gonna be different than what you're looking for. So, going in with that frame of mind when you're talking to franchisees, like spending time with your why, yourself first, and understanding like what you want it to look like for yourself, and then like seeking franchisees that maybe have the same mindset because maybe you just want to own one location and you want to work in it every single day and teach all the classes. That's amazing. That would be, that's going to look different from me as a multi-unit owner where I'm
Yeah.
completely remote. So,
Yeah. That's a great point. I love it. Okay. So we're wrapping up. Is there anything else that you want to share with this audience that might be considering getting into franchising?
I think that my parting words and advice might be to just to really invest in that discovery process and invest in learning all you can about the franchisor as well. I can't honestly imagine doing this with a different franchisor because I feel very fortunate. I've talked to owners and other franchises and just kind of yeah, and they're all a little different, and I feel fortunate that, like, I have a voice in mine, and I love that, so, like, just learning what's important to you and then making sure that it's aligned with, what your franchise can provide you, so
Yeah, I love that. I appreciate your time so much. You have so many different parts of what make you up that give other people the opportunity to see you doing this and being successful and to get them excited about doing it too. So thank you for sharing your story with us and offering some people some things to think about before they hop in or decide not to hop in.
yeah.
So we really appreciate you joining us today and can't wait to see the school number 4 and the school number 5. We'll just keep an eye on you.
Well, thank you so much. No, I really appreciate you asking, and I'm happy I was happy to hop on, so
Yay.
thanks for the
Thanks so much,
conversation.
Ashley.
Yeah.